Hi team! How many of you have completed a hand-tied extension application where your client was just not happy with the way it ended up? There was tension alopecia, there was some pain, it was hard to sleep on. Anybody else? Great, thank you. Well, today I'm going to show you how to do our low tension anchor row, and after that I'm going to go ahead and sew in some of our wefts to give you the volume row. So what we're gonna do here with my lovely mannequin is we're gonna go ahead and start in zone 2. So zone 2 is going to be where we're going to start all of our applications, whether it is hand tied and whether it is tape in. So we're gonna go ahead and find, mine was kind of already there. We're gonna go ahead and find zone 2. This is going to be a comb's length or 2 fingers, comb height, 2 fingers height above the ear. So my gal's is right about here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of make a straight line right there. Now, while we're making this section, we do wanna make sure that we are keeping this at no more than a 10-degree angle. So we are not going to do a huge kind of horseshoe that we might have seen in other applications. It is going to be strictly just a very light 10-degree angle. Nothing crazy. And we're gonna go right around their head that way. Now the reason that we wanna do a 10-degree angle as opposed to anything else that's might be a little bit steeper is, one, because we were doing the low tension method, right? So the low tension method, something that can happen when we do pull it back to, let's say, a 45-degree angle is, one, we're gonna have some drooping. 2, we could have some pain, some tension. All of these front hairs and these front beads are gonna end up pulling back, and we really are trying to create, like I said again, a low tension row and application for our clients. So again, I'm just kind of going around here, making sure that I like this 10-degree angle and that it is nice and clean. The reason we want our sections to be clean is, again, we don't want any sections of tension where it can cause alopecia, it can cause rejection. Rejection would be when the hair rejects or the scalp rejects the actual extensions themselves or the natural hair, the biological hair. So, again, I'm being very tedious with this, but it is so important that we do have this nice and clean. So as we're looking there, we have a nice, just slight angle. I'm gonna clean that little guy up right there. And something I'm going to do too is kind of moisten that section. Just keep a little water bottle on hand, or if you've done the color prior to the extensions, you can towel dry it or even dry it down to about 80 to 90%, just so you have a little bit of some give there. So now that I have that done, I'm gonna go ahead and put this up in a tight Zulu knot or a top knot, however you prefer to call it. This one is gonna be my big one that I don't wanna mess with. It's gonna stay up and out of the way. This clip is going to keep all of the hair up and out of the way, like I said. So, whoops, dropping things. Up and out of the way. Next, what we want to do is we want to take some of our duckbill clips here, and we just want to secure this hair up and out of the way, so we have a nice clean section. I'm going to do this, do it as many times as you need. I think I'm going to need about 3 or 4 to go all the way around Miss Manny's head right here. Don't be shy too when it is your client to move the client's head a little bit. Okay, perfect. So now that we have that completed, we are gonna go ahead and start on our beads, our anchor row. Welcome back, team. So the next step we're gonna do is start our anchor row. Since I'm right-handed, I am gonna start on the right side. You always wanna start on your dominant side just to make things a little bit easier for you. And who loves ease? We all do, right? Absolutely. So now that I have my 10-degree angle and my very nice and clean parting, I have my duckbill clips in. What I'm going to do next is grab my tail comb. We want to make sure that the height of the comb is going to be used as the row. And we want to make sure the rest of the hair is going to be able to cover that. And it does, so that's great. Next, we want to make sure that the hair in front of the row is going to cover the wefts themselves and the row itself. So normally we would start kind of right in front of this ear, which is roughly about 2 fingers, but that might be the case for everybody because density dictates. So what we're going to do first is always check for that vellus hair. These are those hairs that just kind of pop right out in front. It could be because someone is postpartum, it could be because someone has just had COVID hair loss, or just new growth in general. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those 2 fingers and I'm going to go ahead and kind of just slice that down with the tail comb. And that does end up right in front of the ear like I was hoping. So next we're going to put this comb right behind that section, pull backwards, and I cannot see the comb, which is great. You want to do this every single time just to ensure that you are starting in the correct place. Now I'm just going to twist this up, get it out of my way so I can start my anchor row. All right. So now the first thing we're going to do is do our parting, our pie-shaped parting. This parting should be about a closed bead and a half's width down, so height. So what we're going to do is take that section and go upwards like in a pie shape. This section is going to be a little bit bigger, and this is where we're going to house a lot of that tension, but again, it is a low tension method. We do want to make sure that this is only about a finger's width or 1/4 inch of length. And instead of using your finger, we're going to use our tail comb here. Pull that back. And you really want to pull this back and make sure that this is going to be nice and even. We want to clean as we go so we don't have any issues later on. Just going to check again. I think I'm going to take just a tiny bit off of the edge there. And that is great. So I've already preloaded my looper. And this should be on my pinky. That's my bad. And the reason we want to keep it on our pinky is so we can go quicker. We have everything easy, ready to go. And then the Zula knot up here is great to put our comb in between so we can keep our pliers in our hands. So first thing we're going to do is take our section. I'm going to put my comb right up there. We want to stay as close to the head as we possibly can. Does anybody know why? Great, thank you. The reason why is so we keep it nice and clean. We're not yanking and pulling on the client's hair. And we are making sure that everything is nice and concise. So I have my first parting right here. I'm going to take my pliers. I'm going to go right up underneath and hold this bead. Now I'm going to push the bead forward. If we push it too far forward, we are going to get way too much tension. We're going to end up potentially pulling some of that hair out, and it's going to be very uncomfortable for our guest. So something that we're going to do is just pull until we feel a little bit of resistance. Now I'm going a little bit too hard. So we're gonna pull the hair back. I'm gonna let go and clamp down once. When you pull this forward, like it's called a shutter, you should be able to just see the end of that bead. So moving on, we are going to continue with a traveling anchor. So I am just going to follow the bead's height now. So now we have that pie section, and we're going to kind of forget about that little tiny half a bead, closed bead that we were using. Oops. So we're going to take this right underneath and skim it across. It's okay to take a little bit more because it's going to be nice to see how much hair we actually need inside the bead. So again, it's going to be about a finger's width. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that down with my tail comb. Pull that back, looks great. Put my comb in there. We're going to, again, stay very close to the scalp. And we're going to start to pull a little bit. Now, when we get to this point where we're feeling a little bit of tension, that might mean that we're ready for a traveling row or traveling anchor. So there's a little bit of resistance, but for right now, the drop anchor. So we're doing this one last travel anchor right now. That does not mean that we won't go back to our traveling anchor when we switch to our drop anchor. It just means that there is more density in this area than there would be potentially in other areas. So now we have this section right here, and if you look, it will still be about a finger's width apart. So again, we're going to hold the hair backwards. We're going to come up underneath flush with the scalp, push forward until we feel resistance, let go of the hair, and clamp down. So now we have the beginning of our beautiful anchor row. So we are just going to continue to do that all the way probably towards about the hollow of the head, and we're going to go back and start on the other side so we can go to our switch anchor. But first, let's move on to a drop anchor. So for the drop anchor, what we're going to need to do is take out at least half of this, I call it the little tail. So the previous section. So we have about half of that row. And we're still gonna do a bead right to the bead across. And again, same thing as last time, about a finger's width apart. Trim that off. So as you can see here, I have a little bit of this hair hanging down, kind of like those old waterfall braids that were super popular back when we were in high school, going to prom. If you feel me, you feel me. Perfect. So now we should have enough hair in there. Now, if it is too easy and the bead is going to start slipping, we don't have enough hair in the bead. If it is too much hair, it will tell you the bead will not go on. You can kind of maneuver it, use your fingers to kind of let it out. These loopers do have quick release technology, which is fantastic. So you're gonna end up breaking this looping tool before you end up breaking your client's hair. Easy way to not do that is to not overload your looper. And again, like I just said, making sure you have the correct amount of hair. So again, we're gonna go right up underneath, flush the head. We're gonna push in until we feel resistance. We're gonna let go and clamp down. And we are still having this finger width apart. Now this one, I feel like it's kind of popping out a little bit. So the great part about these beads is we do have this little notch right in here. This can open them right away. So what I'm going to do is kind of open that a little bit and just reposition. We wanna make sure we're staying right in front of the section that we're working on. And I think that I was a little bit forward. So again, we're just gonna push that, release the tension, push down twice, and that looks so much better. I'm very happy with that one. All right, and we are just gonna continue. I'm going to do another drop anchor just to see, and I know just from using my mannequin before that this might be my last drop anchor for a hot second here, but we just wanna make sure we have enough hair in it, period. We also want to make sure that if we do mess up, we just go ahead and try again. There is no reason while you're sitting here and doing it to not go ahead and fix your mistake. In the long run, it's gonna make you a better extension stylist, and it is also gonna get you to go a little bit quicker, faster, and your clients are gonna be a lot happier. So again, I'm just gonna pull this, release that tension, and clamp down. I think I'm gonna do about one more right here, and then we're gonna switch to the other side. This one, I'm going to do another traveling anchor. So I'm gonna just pull that bead, and I'm gonna pull all the hair. I'm not gonna drop any of that hair out. Again, just check for the one finger. Use my tail comb to pull down. Tail comb's gonna go up in my knot. I'm just gonna stay a little bit closer to the head. I noticed earlier on one of my beads, I was not as close to the head as I could be, and it did end up looking a little bit messier. So I'm just helping pull that through. This is gonna go right back on my pinky here. Again, I'm in front of the section, pulling it backward. I'm gonna go flush with the head, pull forward till I feel tension. Let go. Didn't like the way that felt. Let go, press down. All right. We're gonna switch over to this side now, just so we can work our way to that switch anchor. So we're gonna do the same exact thing on this side. I already pre-checked this, but we're gonna check this one time, twice if you need. We're gonna make sure we look at that vellus hair. We do the 2 fingers width. That brings me to right about in front of the ear. I'm gonna go ahead and check that section. I cannot see my comb, so that means that we are ready to go. And again, do you know why we need to do that comb check? Because density dictates. And density will dictate throughout this entire process. So now we're gonna go ahead and do another pie-shaped anchor row. I'm gonna do another 1.5 bead length, but I'm gonna start back here at the point of the pie section and work my way down. Again, it's okay if you start off with a little bit more. It's easier to start off with more and take a little bit off, then have a little section and keep going back and back and back in. So I know that I want this to be at least a finger's length, and I know that this is just a little bit more than that bead. If you are not sure, you can take a closed bead. So I'm going to take one of these guys off and show you. We are going to close this bead. So that is about 1. It's almost 2, so I'm just going to take a teensy bit more off the bottom. 1.5, perfect. And I'm not going to throw this bead on the ground. I'm going to set it right over here in my nice pile. So I'm loving the way that looks. I'm going to put my comb right up here. And same as last time, I'm going to stay close to the head. Put my bead in. I'm going to pull down just a little bit just to get some of this hair through, and just helping with my fingers to get the hair through the bead. Going back on my pinky. Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch. Ooh, almost dropped it. We are going to switch our pliers upside down. This is going to be great for our ergonomics. We're still going to be pulling this backward towards the direction of the row that we're going. I'm going to hold the bead, push forward until I feel resistance, drop the tail, and press. And we're ready to start going on our row. First thing, I'm going to do a traveling anchor again. So as before, we're going to stay in line with the bead. I always take a little bit more. Like I said before, don't smack your client in the head with this. In 1 finger's width. Kind of trim that down with the tail comb as usual. Put that back up in the knot. Grab the hair through, staying close to the head to keep it clean. I'm feeling some resistance here. So I actually am going to switch to a drop anchor this time. Instead of going through it and forcing that hair, there's no point. So a nice little pro tip on your non-dominant side. When you're pulling this shutter open and grabbing the hair, you can go ahead and just straight divide that in half. Then you have that little waterfall piece hanging down. You can go back, take off that section, pull it back nice and clean, and then we will see how this fits. Much better already, I can feel it. I'm just gonna use my fingers to kind of pull it. And this will be common for a lot of your clients, that they will be dense on one side, a little bit finer on the other side, and that is no problem. That's why we have multiple anchors to use. So I'm gonna push to resistance, let go, and hold down. This is gonna be so much easier on our shoulder and everything. I could have this gal here a little bit lower. I do have her higher up a little bit for the video. That's gonna save my shoulder in the long run. So I'm just gonna keep going here. I'm gonna do another drop anchor, just because I can see a little bit of some more denseness over on this side. And we are just gonna keep following this around until we are ready to do that switch anchor. Now at this point, does anybody have any questions on what I'm doing here with the row? Perfect, great question. Can anyone else help me answer that question? Great, thank you. Now as you can see, here's part of my section is starting to kind of bubble down. So all I'm gonna do is take my duck clip out, smooth it up with my finger, and just readjust. And that's all you have to do. Just keep your section nice and clean. So I'm gonna go through, I think I'm still gonna do another drop anchor here because she is just still feeling real dense. This girl has all the hair in the world. We're jealous. And again, we are just doing a volume row today. And where does the volume row always start? Just like every other application? Zone 2, which is where we, again, like I said, will start all of our applications. Again, we're gonna go flush to the head, but upward this time. Pull, release, clamp down. Perfect. Again, just a little hair, no problem, just go ahead and fix it. We're gonna go ahead and do another drop anchor. You know what, this time we're gonna try a treble anchor. She's looking like she has a little bit less hair right here. Keeping it very close to the scalp. Pulling down if you need to. Using our fingers to kind of pull that hair through the bead. Now these are aluminum beads, these are 5 millimeters, and there is silicone on the inside. The great thing about the silicone is it will not tear the hair, it will just help it slip out, and it's easy, nice and easy for removal. If there were to be an instance where the hair were to pull, anything of that sort, the silicone will be helpful. It's great that these are aluminum as well because I'm a girl that needs MRIs, so I am very happy that I no longer have to take my extensions out to get that MRI. Again, so we're just keeping it nice and close to the scalp, putting this right back onto my pinky. This will become a lot quicker and faster the more that you do this. Pushing to resistance, clamp down, looking so beautiful. Okay, we are just gonna keep going. Now you could do the switch anchor on either side. I'm going to do mine just on this side because that's how I'm feeling. I prefer this side. I think everybody kind of will just find the side that they enjoy the most. It really will not matter on your client because the hollows of their head normally will not be touching anything like the back of the headrest on the car, their pillow, anything of that nature. So again, just staying closer to the scalp. Just keeping relaxed with my body here. I did get a little bit of some extra hair in there, so I'm just cleaning as I go. This is gonna go right back on my pinky. Again, going straight up and down, pushing until resistance, letting go, and pulling down. Now I am a heavy-handed kind of gal. Is anybody else like that? Yeah, great, thank you. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you a way to help you not over push those beads while doing the row. So something that you can do is we're gonna take our section here, and I'm actually gonna take a drop anchor on this one. Got my 1 finger's width. Pulling that backward. Now, I'm gonna put my fingers through here, staying close to the head. So something that you can do if you are heavy-handed like myself, and this helped me a lot in my training, is we're gonna grab this as in the bead. Close your eyes, push forward, and once you feel that resistance, drop, open, and clamp. And you will not overdo it there. Now when we're ready to start the switch anchor, we wanna make sure we have at least 2 finger widths apart. We can have less, but we absolutely do not want more. Can anybody tell me why? Because we don't want any tension in our row. Because what is the name of it? The low tension anchor row. So I'm gonna do another one right here. Measuring with my finger, cutting some of that hair out. We're gonna go back in with our looper tool. And I am actually starting to run a little bit low on my beads, and I will show you how to add the beads onto your looper roll tool as well. Again, we're just gonna go up here, push forward till we have resistance, drop the tail, clamp down. So when we want to add onto the anchor row, onto the looper again, so sorry. We are going to just put a few in our palm. I'm a palmer. You can do what feels comfortable for you. But we are going to kind of squeeze the tip of the looper a little bit and just pop them on there. You can do a few at a time if you'd like, and then just kind of pull down on it. Oops, I dropped one. So I'm trying to show you. Go in, kind of pull down. Like I said, you can do more than one. If you do them one at a time, it's gonna drive you crazy. It's gonna take you forever. And I believe that should get us through the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in here and make sure we always close this, because could you imagine picking up 1,000 of these or losing 1,000 of them? Not fun. Alrighty, so we're gonna continue on this side. I'm going to do a drop anchor here. So I'm picking up my section, doing half of that tail. I have a little bit of product in the hair, so I'm just gonna comb that out a little bit. Fingers width apart, drop that section, pulling it back, keeping tight to the head, pull that bead on. Feeling a little bit of resistance, not a lot, just enough that I need to make sure I'm not pulling it all the way out. Oh, I set this bad boy down. We're gonna hold this, push it forward, drop, and clamp. So now I have just a little bit more than 2 finger widths apart. I'm gonna do one more coming from this way, and then we will do our switch anchor. So for this section right here, I think I'm going to be able to do just a regular traveling anchor, excuse me. Nope, I lied. We're definitely gonna do a drop row. Anchor. This on, pinky on. Switching this back upward. Flush to the head, pulling forward, releasing that tension, clamping down. Great. Okay, now we are ready for our switch anchor. So we have 2 fingers width apart right here for the switch anchor. So what we are going to do is I'm going to make sure I have another duckbill clip. And I'm going to make sure I have another clip that I'm just going to use to kind of keep the hair down here out of the way. So we are going to take, it doesn't matter which side you start on. There's going to, just like I said with where the switch anchor is, it's going to be what you're used to, what you're comfortable with, and just, you know, your repetition with it. So we're going to open up this shutter again. And we're going to take about half the section in between and pull that through. I took a little bit too much, but that is okay because it's not at the breaking point yet, and I can kind of pull that hair through. You do want to make sure you leave enough hair though that you can get your looper through the tool. So I'm going to take another duckbill clip, and I'm just going to clip that right up there. I'm going to hold this bead and push it forward towards me so this can fit between the hair and the bead. And I am just going to open that back up and clip that down as well. I'm going to take my opposite side of the switch anchor and pick up the rest of that hair, like so. I'm going to unclip this section right here. This hair is already through, so we are going to put our 2 fingers and pull this section through the looper and pull down. And again, there may be just a little bit of resistance. We're just gonna make sure that we are kind of working it through. Okay, so this should come out right here. As you can see, I kind of may have had a little bit too much hair right in here, but I went ahead and fixed that. The silicone was trying to pop out a little bit. So now we're gonna clean up our little mustache or bow, just to make sure it looks nice and pretty. If you need to take a little bit out to make sure it's all nice and cleaned up, please do now before you go ahead and clamp down. So now that we have that looking all nice and beautiful, we're gonna take our clamp. We're gonna go up and hold that in place. Go up, clamp down once. We're gonna go up top just to ensure it and clamp down one more time. And then there we have our anchor row. Okay, last but certainly not least, we are going to start sewing our hand-tied extensions. I went ahead and put both of my rows on zone 2 since that is where we put our row. I have one out here. We could go ahead and just kind of do this all the way across if we wanted, but we don't want those tethers to be facing the front of the head. We do want them to be folded back. And another reason is so we can go ahead and put our bumper in, which is a little knot that I will show you how to do while we are sewing. So when we have these hand-tied extensions, we want to make sure that we are putting it in front of that first bead, but not all the way to the edge. And the reason that we don't want to put it all the way to the edge is so we don't have any flapping, we don't have any pulling just right on this corner. We just want to make sure that we have, enough room to go ahead and get sewn in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it just a little bit so it doesn't go all the way across, but it does cover most of the row so we have as much volume as we want and need. We are going to take our marking clips, which are inside of our hand-tied extension kit, and I'm going to just mark that down. And this is what we call mapping, is our extensions. We want to map all of this out. Now we don't want to be shoving those marking clips all the way down. Anybody know why? Ow, right? Yes, that's not, it's painful. Another reason why we don't want to put them up into the hair up here more finished, we want to set them down nicely in a pile. So I am going to, I'm sorry, just got a message that my client I think got in a car accident. So I apologize for that. Whew. So I'm gonna pause and check that message and I will be right back. Okay, we are back. She did not get in an accident. There was just an accident. So she's gonna be late. And that's okay because she's safe and we're happy. Okay, so now after I lost a marking clip, my next one I'm gonna do right where the front of this weft ends, right where the tether starts, and I want to put it there so I know that I'm going to be doing some more sewing there to make sure that that is laid down properly. We also want to make sure that these wefts are above the bead. If you put the weft below the bead before you sew, that's where you're going to see the weft, or you're going to see the bead after the sew. So I put another marking clip right here where that second tether is. I'm going to go ahead and take my second one out of zone 2 here. We are going to fold it like before. And we are going to, again, put it in front of that first bead, but not all the way to the front. We want to leave about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to take the marking clip. I'm going to go right here. We're going to grab where that tether is, or the end of the weft, and put a marking clip there as well. And then finally another marking clip where this one ends right here. Now if you feel like you want some more marking clips in there just for some stability, please do. Have them go all the way across so you know. Another thing that I am going to do is take a duckbill clip, and I'm going to have this follow me around the whole way, making sure that I am staying in the area that I would like to sew. So we are going to use our nylon thread from Amplify. We're going to do 2 arms length across, so 1 full arm's length this way and about a half. That should be enough. If you ever find yourself running out, all you have to do is cut that and start over, as long as you make sure that you are really locked in there with your double anchor. So we are just going to cut that off, and we are going to take our C-shaped needle here. Something I'm going to do also, just like we prep our, whoops, turn it on, just like we prep our tape with a little tap, I'm going to go ahead and prep the string, or thread, I'm sorry, as well, just to make sure that we have a little bit more ease while using it and we are not going to be having a bunch of knots. So all you have to do is just do a light kind of pull through, and this will just help it, like I said, keep from creating those pesky little knots that we have while sewing. Again, the knot is going to be a great place to hold your needle if need be. So what I'm going to do now is take the thread and make a little tiny loop right here. This is going to help get it through the eye of the needle. I believe that's what it's called. And we're going to pull it through, not all the way, but just enough. So we're gonna have our string and then we're gonna have our feeder. The feeder is the shorter side that's gonna keep feeding the string. We're not even gonna tie these together. And then it just keeps going until we go all the way through the thread. So what we are going to do to start is we are gonna go back behind in front, or we're going to go in front of that third bead. So 2 rows behind, so that's about 2 pockets. First thing we're gonna do is we're going to kind of do a little peekaboo here. Make sure we are where we are supposed to be. Holding our C-shaped needle. Going through the hair, right back out, and we're staying very close. We are gonna pull this. We don't need to be pulling all the way back like this. We just need to stay nice and tight to the head. The first thing we're going to do is just tie off a knot to start our stitching. So we're going to tie 1. We're gonna go around again twice. Oops, once. It's slipping out a little. Twice, and that is all you need. Now you can pin this up out of the way. You can trim it right away if you want. You don't want it any longer or shorter than 1.5 inches to 1 inch. So we're just gonna cut that little bit. Next, I'm gonna start moving forward towards the face. We are going to go back into this pocket, and we are going to keep our string on the side that we are heading towards. Okay, I pull back a little far. We're going to keep it nice and close. That feeder is out. We are going to have our 2 fingers, excuse my nails, anybody else, I mean, come on. Our 2 fingers that make a peace sign. We're gonna go counterclockwise and do 2 full rotations. 1, 2, and this needle is gonna go right through that circle. This should create the knot for you, and you will see it start to form. Once it gets there, we're gonna pop it and lock it back. We are going to do 1 more of the double anchor stitches. So we are going to go right here. It's going to go with in between the 2, but the string is going to be on the side that we are heading. Again, 2 fingers up. 1, 2. 2 full rotations counterclockwise, pulling that through. If you get caught a little bit, just go ahead and use your needle to open it up. It's being silly for some reason. So this right here is a good time to see that maybe we did not do this anchor row correctly, and I can see anchor stitch correctly, and I can see exactly where I did that at. There we go. So we're gonna pop and lock. Perfect. And this guy, I may not have put too deep into the head. Another reason we don't want us to go all the way forward and not all the way to the bead is because sometimes the wefts start to shift backwards, and we want to be able to make sure we cover that bead. So now we're going to do what is called the knuckle. And that's going to be 4 back-to-back single anchor stitches. So I'm going to go right through here. Same as before, we're just going to keep the string on the side of which we are headed. This time we are just going to do one full rotation counterclockwise. Pop that through the circle there. Going up, cleaning as we go. Bump, bump, pop and lock. Got my second knuckle here. Again, keeping it on the side in which we are headed. We've got our two fingers, one full rotation. Pulling that in, pop and lock. At this point, I'm going to move my marking clip and kind of hold it underneath in place. I'm popping over this bead. You never want to stitch on top of a bead. We're going to make sure too that we're pulling this in between the two, but again, it is still going to stay on the side in which we are headed. One full rotation, pull it through the hole or loop, up, pop and lock. And this will be our fourth and final knuckle. Just between the two, got that feeder out of there. I'm gonna pull this up nice and close. One full rotation through the loop. Pulling it up, popping and locking. Now we're gonna go to our bumper. And so our bumper is we are going to go not behind all the wefts and into the hair, but just in that front corner of the weft. And that is going to just be a normal single anchor stitch. Once you have done that, you are secure and you can start back stitching. So we are going to back stitch. Now we're going to be heading back this way and we're going to follow that all the way to the front. So now our string is headed towards the opposite side. You're going to stay in close here. One full rotation, still going counterclockwise even though we're going the opposite direction now. Pull that up, we're going to pop and lock. And again, we are just going to keep going on with this until we are past the stitching that we have already done. Lock. Now we also only did that double anchor stitch twice as we were starting, and it is also, we are only going to do it twice when we end. So a total of 4 times, only the twice on each side. You don't have to do a double anchor stitch the whole way through. Could you? If you wanted to, a lot of work to cut that out of the hair, but I will show you what we recommend next after I'm done with this back stitching. So now I'm right in front of this third bead, so I'm going to pop over behind that bead. We're going to do counterclockwise once, one full rotation, put that needle through, pull upward, pop lock, and I'm going to show you the top stitch. So with the top stitch, this is going to be your easiest stitch, but you don't necessarily want to do it the entire time, just so we can make sure that we have a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for, stability in our row. So the top stitch is going to be very simple. We're just going to do the same as always, where we go through the hair and the weft. We're going through the middle, and this time, no finger, no looping, we're just pulling up. Easy peasy. I'm going to switch between the two now. So we're going to switch between the top in the single anchor. Rotate once counterclockwise, pull this through the loop, head upward, pop lock, beautiful. I'm just going to clean this up again. This mannequin hair loves to fall down on me. Now I don't have room for another one, so I'm going to pop over to the next bead. This one is going to be just a top stitch. And as you can see, we are approaching a tether and an end of a weft. So I'm going to go right and through again. This time I'm going to be doing single anchor. I'm going to do another top stitch, and then I'm going to start my knuckling again. You want to be doing this knuckle anytime that you need more stability, such as a weft starting or beginning, because that is where we're going to end up seeing a little bit of flopping or some pieces coming up, and that's going to bother your client. She's going to be messing with it, she'll be picking at it, and it will not be fun for her. So I'm just going to put this out, not putting it in the hair, putting it in my pile, and I'm going to start my knuckling. And the knuckling is the 4 back-to-back single anchors. 1 full rotation, pulling through, staying close to the head, top block. I'm gonna hop over that bead, do another one as close as I possibly can. Feel my feet are getting smaller, so I can add a little bit more. 1 full rotation, I'll just pull it through, up, block, block. Another one right here. We are still in a nice pocket of hair without a bead. 1 full rotation, pulling it through, pulling up, block. And I'm going to do 1 more just to ensure the security of this weft. Wrap around 1 time, full rotation, keeping it close to the head, pulling straight up. All right, so now I'm going to just move over to just a regular top stitch because I am done with that weft, but we do have another one coming up here very shortly, as you can see with that marker. So it's a regular top stitch. I'm now going to pop over that bead. I'm going to go ahead and do another single anchor, 1 rotation, pulling through, pulling that up. I'm going to take my duckbill clip and just make sure it is still nice and secure underneath the section that I'm working on. I'm going to do another top stitch right here. I'm going to switch back. I'm going to switch back. 1 full rotation, pull through. Now I have room for just 1 more top stitch before I switch to my knuckle. So I'm going to take my marker clip out, and I'm going to pop over this bead, which is right where this is starting, and start my first knot or stitch in the knuckle. So 1 full rotation, pulling up. Now we don't want to be yanking all the way up because we don't want to be pulling the client's hair, making them feel uncomfortable, yanking on their biological hair, anything of that nature. Pulling through. It's my second knuckle. I'm going to pull a little bit more down on my feeder. We've got the third knuckle here. One full rotation again. And you will kind of start to see your pattern. You will be able to see a difference between each stitch. And it's actually really cool once you start to see that. That was our third knuckle. And we're going to go ahead and do one more just to ensure the security of that weft and tether. Next, I'm just going to move myself back to a top stitch for one last stitch inside this hair pocket. Now it's time to hop over that bead. I'm going to do a single anchor. And switch down to a top stitch. So I'm just going to reverse or switch back and forth with the two until I hit another weft. Now with more wefts in the hair, you will switch back and forth a lot more often with the knuckling. I am only gonna have these first two, and then I'm gonna have two more over here. Throughout here, I just kept these to keep them up high for myself. So that was a single anchor, so I'm gonna switch to a top stitch. Now on a head of hair, normal head of hair, you wanna have minimum 2 wefts, but the maximum is gonna be 6 per row. We don't want anything more like that. It becomes too bulky. It is not very comfortable for the client. Single anchor, and we're going to continue that all the way over to here. Hi team, I am back. I had to switch locations due to some technical difficulties, but I'm just going to continue sewing. So the last stitch that I did was a single anchor row. So I'm going to go right next to that and just go ahead and do a top stitch. Now I've made my way to another bead and I'm going to continue to do the single anchor and the top stitch back and forth, all the way up until I get to my next marking clip. And once I get there, I will be right back to chat with you about what we're going to do next. As I'm doing this, I do want to remind you that I am making sure that I am taking my marking clips and not putting them directly into the client's hair. And also, if you noticed, I do have my traveling claw clip with me that I'm taking away so I don't have any slipped wefts. Now, if you do end up having a slipped weft, that is okay. All we're going to do is later go back and re-sew. However, time is money, so we want to make sure that we are keeping them in the correct position, in the correct place at all times, so we don't have to go back and redo those wefts. And just remember to clean as you go. It is going to make your life so much easier, but we will also make sure that we brush over this row when we are finished to make sure that we have gotten everything where it needs to be. There's no extra hairs out of place. And just making sure that we are popping over each bead and not going behind it. Now here's a good example. My feeder and my thread popped out. So I'm just gonna make another little loop as I have done before. I'm just gonna, oops, not tight. Make sure it just goes right through. Give myself a little bit extra so that doesn't happen again. We also would like to make sure that we are still continuing to keep our string, or our thread, I'm sorry, thread, not string, headed towards the area that we are going. So now, since we're working, we started on the right side, our dominant side, my dominant side, and I'm working my way towards the left. So now my thread will be on the left-hand side. And once we get to the front and come back, we'll switch back to it heading towards the right side. I am just gonna go ahead and readjust my wefts because they are starting to slip down a little bit. Taking back that marking clip. Making sure I know exactly where each weft is gonna end, so I know where we need to have our knuckling. I'm gonna take my clip and just keep it underneath so nothing can slip down. So now we're coming up right here on a tether, an end of a weft. So I'm gonna start knuckling, which is how many? 4 single anchor stitches. So here is 1. Darn it, I got that string stuck in there. There we go. 1 full clockwise circle, counterclockwise circle. Pull up, pop, lock. I have a bead there, so I'm gonna make sure I pop over that. Even though I'm doing my knuckling, I still wanna make sure that I'm going on the opposite side of each bead, so I am not sewing back behind the bead. Now, since I have two wefts right next to each other, I'm going to do a few more knuckles. I don't know if I'm going to have to do 8, but I am going to use my best judgment at this point. Because rule of thumb is that we're going to do 4 knuckles per weft or edge. But since I have 2 kind of right on top of each other, like I said, I'm just going to use my best judgment and just make sure that the main thing we want to work on is that we are keeping that piece down so it will not bother our client. Perfect place to hold our needle up in that top knot, just like our tail comb. Just readjusting here. And we are going to keep going. So I have those knuckles done. So what I'm going to do next is just a regular top knot or top stitch. And continue the way I was doing, going back and forth between the single anchor and the top knot. And again, this little guy fell out. Practice makes progress though. So that is something I definitely need to work on. And it will definitely be getting easier as time goes on. Has anybody else only ever done the double thread? I definitely have. So this has been quite a challenge for me to switch to a single thread. I will say I prefer the single thread. It is just a little bit more of a challenge with that feeder, because it almost seems like it's in your way, it bugs you. But once you get the dexterity down, that's really all it is. Again, as always, we're just keeping close to the head. Again, move your client, don't move for your client. And this one won't yell back at you. So this is the perfect time to practice. Okay, we are now approaching our second bead. So I'm going to start doing my single anchor stitch all the way to the edge. We're going to work on that bumper, back stitch, and then do our 2 double anchor stitches. So I'm still on the right side of my second one. So I'm just going to go ahead and start doing my single anchor. And I'm not going to add in the top stitch for this, just because it is so much closer to the face and we really want that to be more secure. Hopping over that bead. One full rotation counterclockwise. No matter which side you're starting on, you want it to always be counterclockwise. Again. I will say, once it starts getting shorter, it does get a little bit tougher, but that is an easy fix. This guy's getting in my way here. I am right next to that bead now. I'm going to do one more right here. I'm now going to take this last marker right here, and I'm just going to go right underneath just for some extra security to make sure we're not letting that drop down at all. I am now on the opposite side of the bead, the very first bead. So I'm going to go ahead and do a single anchor stitch, full rotation, pop and lock. I'm going to do one more before I do that bumper. Because we are now creating a knuckle. So I have those 4 back to back. I'm going to go right inside again, not going all the way to the hair, but just in between those 2 wefts. So we're going to go straight in there in the corner. In this, we're just going to pull up there. We are going to do a single anchor stitch behind that and then start our back stitching. I'm going to pop over that first bead again, back stitching. Now, something I have gotten better with is keeping this thread out of my mouth. We don't want to be doing that. That is why we tapped it with our flat iron prior to. I've had no problem with knots. It's a really great way to keep it nice and smooth. One full rotation. And I am finally at that last bead. So I'm going to do one more single anchor stitch right here. Full rotation. Now I'm going to do my 2 double anchors. So we have our peace sign, 1, 2. Just got a little bit of there it goes. Now when you see a bubble or a little piece of string popping up like that, definitely just go ahead and work with it and try to get it to even out nicely for you. You don't want to have that really messy kind of section. Okay, now all we're going to do is slide this guy through. So now all we do is have that string down underneath. And again, just for a rule of thumb, we're gonna make sure we keep it to about 1 inch to 1.5 inches long. Cut it. I'm gonna keep it in our pile over here. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and take my marker clips out that we're still in. And I have a tether right here, so we're gonna go ahead and hide that. So I'm going to take my loop tool and I'm gonna go from underneath up. So we're gonna go underneath the weft upwards. I'm then gonna grab that tether. There's a few pieces. And again, we don't wanna cut these tethers because we don't want these hand-tied extensions that are so delicate to fall apart. So I'm just gonna take my 2 fingers here, place it inside, and pull down with my loop tool. So now it is hidden back behind my weft. Right here, we have some other tethers. So again, I'm just going to lift up, pull my loop tool right through here. Grab my tethers, grab a hold of them, pull them through, and go ahead and grab the base of this and pull them right back below. And then we are good to go. So I'm gonna take some of these out. This is where we are gonna go ahead and just kind of give it a nice brush through. You do want to kind of hold, not kind of, you do want to hold right where that weft is being sewn, has been sewn. And just make sure your client knows that they are able, absolutely, we want them to be brushing like so. All right. Pull a little bit of that string up there. So I'm just going to go under. Maybe. There we go. Pull that string through. Pull it down. Great. Okay, and that is how we sew our hand-tied extensions here at Amplify. And then when you do lift up, it should be nice and tight to the scalp. This grow out is going to be amazing. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something today. Again, I am Paige Cody, and here is how we do our hand-tied application. Thank you.